And here is the Writer's Almanac for Monday, February the 7th, 2022. It's the birthday of Sinclair Lewis, Sauk Center, Minnesota, 1885, went off to Yale University, became a journalist, traveled all across the country, traveled around Europe, but most of his books are set in small-town Midwestern America. His first big success, his novel Main Street in 1920. It's the birthday of Laura Ingalls Wilder, born just north of Pepin, Wisconsin, 1867, who began writing when she was in her 60s, The Little House on the Prairie, and other books in the Little House series. It's the birthday of the poet David Ignato, born in Brooklyn, 1914. His father was a Russian immigrant who loved Tolstoy, Turgenev, and Chekhov. The son had to go to work in the family bindery company, eventually became president, but still wrote poetry whenever he got the chance. His books include Rescue the Dead and I Have a Name. And it's the birthday of Charles Dickens, born Portsmouth, England, 1812. His father was thrown in debtor's prison when the boy was 12. He was forced to go work in a factory, putting labels on jars of shoe polish. He never forgot that. By his mid-40s, Dickens was a very popular and successful writer. He had written Oliver Twist and Nicholas Nickleby, A Christmas Carol. David Copperfield earned enough money he could buy a country house called Gad's Hill Place, near where he had grown up. The same year he bought that house, he helped his friend Wilkie Collins write a play, and Dickens hired the cast, which included an 18-year-old actress named Ellen Ternan. And Dickens, who was 45, fell in love with Ellen, became frustrated by his marriage of more than 20 years, the 10 children he had to support. He felt that he and his wife Catherine were simply not made for each other, and a year later he and his wife separated. Dickens's affair with Ellen Ternan lasted for the rest of his life, though he was very careful to keep her out of the public eye. He wrote less and toured more. After that, he gave readings of A Christmas Carol, which he did in very dramatic fashion. He made a tour of the United Kingdom, giving 149 performances of selections from his novels, in which he reenacted Bill Sykes's murder of his lover Nancy from Oliver Twist. In the late 1860s, he gave a reading tour of the United States, 76 shows, even while his health was failing and he suffered from repeated small strokes. Doctors warned him not to do it again, but 3 months after his final public reading, he died of a cerebral hemorrhage at the age of 58. Here's a poem for today by Lawrence Robb, entitled The Great Poem. The great poem is always possible. Think of Keats and his odes. But we shouldn't have to be dying. What I'm writing now is not the great poem. After a few lines, I could tell. It may not even be a particularly good poem, although it's too early to decide about that. Keep going, I say. See what happens. But trying hard is one of the problems, since it shows in the lines as a strain or struggle that reminds the reader too much of the writer, whereas most readers want to listen alone. The great poem, I think, will arrive when I no longer care. Perhaps I'll have abandoned art altogether, and I won't even want to write the poem down, but then I'll remember what I once would have given for this moment, and I'll go back to my desk, and I'll write the poem as though I were another person, someone I will never be again. The Great Poem by Lawrence Robb, from The History of Forgetting. That's the Writer's Almanac for Monday, February the 7th. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.